We continue learning Dirshu Mishnah Brura Hilchais Betzias Hapas Siman Kof Samoch Zayin. We are up to Sif Tes Vav. We just finished discussing who is the Baitzeya, the Kabbalabas, the Kayin, the Talmud Chacham. Who is the one that makes the bracha, cuts the bread. And now we continue with Sif Tes Vav, in which the Mechaber teaches us Eina Besun Rishayim Litam Ashiyitim Abatzeya. Those sitting around the table are not allowed to eat until the Baitzeya takes a bite. Aval, however, says the Ramah, Mutter Lasis Cholechad Chalkei Kodim Shechalu. You're allowed to give everyone their piece before you eat. V'hem Yamtinu Ad Shechalu, and they shall wait until you eat. Continues the Machaber. Excuse me. So let's pause at that point, because this is, the regular Shabbos scenario where the Baal Boss is giving a challah to everyone around the table. So it says this is referring to when they are yotzei with his bracha. Says the Pri Megadim, even if they're not really having in mind to Yotzei's bracha, and they make their own bracha. However, since they all need his bread, as he has the lechem mishtan, he is giving out the bread. So even if you're not actually utilizing his bracha, says the Pri Megadim, ein miderech hakavoid. It's not kavod. He's the one giving you the bread, and you're going to take a bite before him. So we start off with that even if one is not, and the reason why this is actually very important is because it's different minhagim in Klal Yisrael. I believe those with more of a Hasidic background, there they go with the minhag that every person, after they get their bread, they get their piece of challah, they make their own bracha. So one might think, so this whole halacha is not relevant. Each person makes his own bracha, so finished. Says the Pri Megadim, no, it's still not kavod. So if he gives you a piece of challah, you don't take a bite before he takes a bite. Continue with Sivkot Ayin Zayin Rishayim Litim. The Hainu Sheyirtza Lachtich Menakikir Shal B'Tzev Litim Kodim Loi. That he wants to take a bite before him. Avol Motor Sivkot Ayin Chaz Ve'im B'Zahav Saka. Says the Mishnah Brura, but it's not considered hafsaka, it's not considered a separation to go and give it out before you eat. The cholzat tzayrech sudahu, because this is all a tzayrech, this is all a necessity of the suda, quoting the Magen Avram. And then what happens? And they wait, and they wait until you take your bite first. Even if you give them rishos, it doesn't help, and they should wait for you before they eat. Says the Taz, you should not do this. It's not kedai for you to give out to each person their piece. Says the Taz, I don't understand. You're giving them a piece of bread, but they can't eat it. So what are you doing? They can't eat it until you take a bite first. Therefore, it's considered a hefsek, meaning ostensibly it's not a hefsek, because really it's a tzarech of the chila to give out the bread. But says the Taz, because they can't go and eat it because they have to wait for you, therefore it is considered some level of hefsek. Says the Taz, this is not optimal. Number one, you take a bite and then give it to them. Similarly, the Graz and the Magin Gibayrim writes the same, and therefore that is the appropriate practice, that the Baitzeya, he that is making the bracha on the bread, on the challah, he should not give it out until he goes and takes a bite for himself. Excuse me. Now we go back to the Mechaber. So that's halacha number one of the day, which really is, as we mentioned, very relevant for every Friday night, every Shabbos day, every Shabbos, where often there is that one Baitzeya making the bracha for everyone. So we're learning that number one, the people should not eat before him, and number two, because they're not going to eat before him, he should not give them their bread until he takes a bite. Continues, let's say more like a simcha type, everyone has their own loaf of bread. So if everyone eats and they don't need his bread, they don't have to wait for him, and then they're allowed to eat first. Vimu Shabbos, says the Bachaber, if this is Shabbos, like we're talking about, then everyone needs their own Nacham Mishnah. Chutz mimashal B'Tzeya. Aside for that which is in front of the B'Tzeya, everyone needs their own Nacham Mishnah. V'azir Rashayim Litayim, and then they're able to eat Kaidem HaB'Tzeya before the B'Tzeya. So it says the Mishnah Berurah over here, and with this we conclude Sifkat and Pei. If they each have their own complete loaf, even though they're all being yoyt in his bracha, but because they have it in front of them, they don't have to wait for him to eat. But in Shabbos, everyone should have their own Mishnah. Says Mishnah Berurah, if they don't have their own Mishnah, then they have to wait for the one making the bracha, his Mishnah, and eat from that bread, and then they're not able to eat kaidem lai before him. So it says the machaber, the easy way to mitigate the situation is that everyone should have their own bread. Of course, that is not really the meaning of what we do nowadays, but we'll stop over here and pick it up from Sifteh Zayin in the next Shir, B'siyata Tishmaya.